Welcome to Do Your Dailies, the podcast designed to help you on your journey of addiction recovery. We're going to go through the big book of AA and use our collective experience, strength, and hope to help you understand what addiction recovery really looks like. So grab some snacks, sit back, press play, and dig deep. Thanks for being here. Hey, everybody. Welcome to this episode of the Do Your Dailies podcast. I'm your host, Chris. It's Joe and me today, and we are hanging out with you guys. Just really excited to get into the big book. We'll have a little bit shorter episode for you today, but we're gonna jump into it. Joe, how are you so far?
I'm doing really well. I've had a really good weekend. Coming back from the weekend and jumping into my day, and especially starting it with reading from the big book. This is a great way to start any day, and I look forward to kind of what we're going to get into in We Agnostics today.
Very good. All right. So for you guys that follow along with us, we're on page 48. It's the first starting sentence of that page. It says this. I'll read, and Joe's going to interrupt me pretty soon. It says, many of us have been so touchy that even casual reference to spiritual things made us bristle with antagonism. This sort of thinking had to be abandoned. Though some of us resisted, we found no great difficulty in casting aside such feelings. Faced with alcoholic destruction, we soon became as open-minded on spiritual matters as we had tried to be on other questions. In this respect, alcohol was a great persuader. It finally beat us into a state of reasonableness. Sometimes this was a tedious process. We hope no one else will be prejudiced for as long as some of us were. The reader may still ask why he should believe in a power greater than himself. We think there are good reasons. Let us have a look at some of them. The practical individual of today is a stickler for facts and results. Nevertheless, and I don't think that's changed.
No, right? Not at all. I think we're even more entrenched into we want facts and we want to see results. We don't want just to be given lip service.
Right. So I'll read that again. The practical individual of today is a stickler for facts and results. Nevertheless, the 20th century readily accepts theories of all kinds, provided they are firmly grounded in fact. We have numerous theories, for example, about electricity. Everybody believes them without a murmur of doubt. Why this ready acceptance? Simply because it is impossible to explain what we see, feel, direct, and use without a reasonable assumption as a starting point. Everybody nowadays believes in scores of assumptions for which there is good evidence, but no perfect visual proof. And does not science demonstrate that visual proof is the weakest proof? It is being constantly revealed as mankind studies the material world that outward appearances are not inward reality at all. To illustrate, the prosaic steel girder is a mass of electrons whirling around each other at incredible speed. These tiny bodies are governed by precise laws, and these laws hold true throughout the material world. Science tells us so. We have no reason to doubt it. When, however, the perfectly logical assumption is suggested that underneath the material world and life as we see it, there is an all-powerful, guiding, creative intelligence, right there, our perverse streak comes to the surface, and we laboriously set out to convince ourselves it isn't so. We read wordy books and indulge in windy arguments, thinking we believe this universe needs no God to explain it. Were our contentions true, it would follow that life originated out of nothing, means nothing, and proceeds nowhere. We're going to pause right there.
Yeah, I want to stop right there because I want to actually go back up to one sentence that was just covered powerfully that I don't think a lot of people actually pay that much attention to. When it says, all-powerful guiding creative intelligence, right there, our perverse streak comes to the surface, and we laboriously set out to convince ourselves it isn't so. Now, I'm not trying to speak for anybody other than myself, but I'll tell you right there, that was me in my days of drinking, and that's me in my ego. I don't want to be told anything different. I don't want to be told I'm wrong. I definitely don't want to be told the way I'm thinking is wrong. And I really appreciate kind of the perspective that he shares is like, we have alcoholic temperament really kind of get to that point to where if we're really acknowledging the state that we're in, I hope it would like get you to a point where you're open-minded. But what he's pointed out right here is like, there's no open-mindedness in a state of thinking and being like that. And the problem that exists is like, for too many of our viewers, you'll understand the power of how your ego just absolutely is a power that you wrestle with, that's not necessarily your friend. It wants to be right. It doesn't want to hear any other arguments contrary to what you might believe or hear. And the problem that exists, I firmly believe, is that we don't give enough credibility to the fact that we don't know everything. I mean, we truly believe what we believe, but we don't see that even what we know is just so minute compared to the vast knowledge of really what's out there that many people are just stuck in that idea that I'm content with what I know and where I'm at, but that also gets us stuck. And that's kind of what I think he's kind of alluding to in this perspective is like, we need to get out of that contentious nature with ourselves, but we also need to get out of it with other people, and we need to realize that maybe other people have some truth that we don't have that can help us in this journey called our spiritual life. I just found that really resonating because I don't think enough people talk about that internal struggle that we have with ourselves, because for many of us, we've just given it up and said, I'm just going to do it, meaning drinking, and allow myself to go further and further into it, but it slowly destroys us, So, yeah, I'm very convinced that what he's saying here is true, because he's alluding to the ego playing such a significant part in delusionally convincing us that the work that we have to do is just double down and be right.
Yeah, that ego that you mentioned, when we are so stubborn and resistant, thinking that we know everything, that's so sad. And I imagine that we've all been there at some point in time, and many of us will cycle back to that stance, depending on the circumstances, depending on the situation. Where we're like, no, I'm pretty sure. I know, I remember that perfectly. It can be something trivial too that we double down on. That word, nope, I guarantee it. I remember it perfectly, vividly, and all of those things. And you're wrong, or they're wrong, or whatever it is. But something like this, where emotion comes up too. We can have very strong feelings, as has been talked about already in this chapter. Some strong feelings come up for us too. And as humans, I don't think we love to be in the unknown. We need resolution. We seek that resolution to have a sense of control. And unfortunately, I think we even will accept finality on things, even if it's inaccurate, even if we're wrong, because at least it's like, I have something final. It's done. I put a period at the end of that sentence. Even if there are errors with that, we almost feel like a compulsion to do that, I think. And maybe I shouldn't speak for humanity and just myself and my experiences, but there are times where we are certain of something and it's absolutely false. So if that's true, maybe we just invite each of us to acknowledge that we're going to be wrong every once in a while. There's going to be new information, and we can learn, we can grow, we can evolve. What were you going to say?
I was just going to say, as we go through We Agnostics, I mean, it's interesting. The title of this chapter is specifically to invite us to deal with our agnosticism, our lack of knowledge. Okay, because that's what agnostic really means, is lack of knowledge. It's like lack of knowledge of what? And what we're really talking about is we lack knowledge of ourselves. We lack knowledge of the addiction. We lack knowledge of the spiritual aspects involved in what we really need to do to get better. And it's like, that's the beautiful nature of going on this journey, is we're ever invited to also understand that our lack of knowledge is consistent. There's always more to learn and know, not only about yourself, but also about, the experiences that you're having with your loved ones, and your environment. So, we're in this journey as we're reading to gain a little more knowledge of like the lack of knowledge that we have.
Yeah, I love it. Okay, right there in the middle of 49, it says, instead of regarding ourselves as intelligent agents, spearheads of God's ever-advancing creation, we agnostics and atheists chose to believe that our human intelligence was the last word, the alpha and the omega, the beginning and end of all. Rather vain of us, wasn't it? We can laugh about that, but
well, I mean that's what it's been building up to, and I believe that. It's my ego at times doesn't want to hear anything else. But thankfully, due to my alcoholism, I got to a point to where I could put that up, and I could say I need to listen to other people's perspectives, because something might come at me that I have not seen or I don't know. Because before then, I just shut the door on it, and I wasn't listening to anybody or anything because I didn't want to.
Yeah. I think we can invite our ego to take a seat sometimes. Yeah. And it doesn't have to be this adversarial, I'm right and you're wrong, or vice versa. It's just, is there some stuff out there that I'm not sure of? Are there things that I'm doing that I'm not aware I'm doing them, right? Hopefully we're getting feedback all the time from the people in our lives that we love, that love us, that on areas that we can improve. As a therapist, I tell my people, I'm a very expensive friend. Mm-hmm. If you just want if you want to come in and pay a very high fee to just be told that you're perfect and wonderful and it's all their fault, you did nothing wrong, you could find that cheaper somewhere else. Sure. Our role as therapists is not to just validate somebody and that's it. It's to help them grow. It's to help them see things from different perspectives and different angles. We don't want to be the opposite end of that validating spectrum where we're just critical and critiquing all of the time. It's a dance and it's a balance and all of those things. But a big part of our role is to help somebody recognize where they grow, where corrections need to be made, and then where to kind of step on the gas when it comes to strengths and healthy qualities of us, right? And do those things more profoundly, more frequently, and with more strength. And so again, it's when we hear feedback, sometimes that feedback's tough. Mm-hmm. Sometimes it can be hurt and it can hurt and it can be surprising or whatever. But if we approach that from the perspective of gratitude, I think we're better off for it. But anyway, I think that helps to reduce the adversarial nature of a conversation like this in We Agnostics when we're talking about spirituality and higher power. So, okay, we'll keep going. We who have traveled this dubious path beg you to lay aside prejudice, even against organized religion. We have learned that whatever the human frailties of various faiths may be, those faiths have given purpose and direction to millions. People of faith have logical idea of what life is all about. Actually, we used to have no reasonable conception whatever. We used to amuse ourselves by cynically dissecting spiritual beliefs and practices when we might have observed that many spiritually minded persons of all races, colors, and creeds were demonstrating a degree of stability, happiness, and usefulness which we should have sought ourselves. On to page 50. Instead, we looked at the human defects of these people and sometimes used their shortcomings as a basis of wholesale condemnation. We talked of intolerance, while we were intolerant ourselves. We missed the reality and the beauty of the forest because we were diverted by the ugliness of some of its trees. We never gave the spiritual side of life a fair hearing. Let's talk about that paragraph. What comes up for you, Joe? What are your thoughts there? I've got some myself.
Well, I mean, to me, as you were reading that, I was thinking of that scriptural statement, where, the analogy is like, you're recognizing a splinter in somebody's finger, but you've got like literally a 2x4 hanging out of your forehead. It's like we have this ability in life, and I'm not just because I'm guilty of it. Okay, I have the ability to always look at other people's problems, but to defer to like helping them work on theirs without having to look at mine, or to point out their defects of character so that I don't have to look at mine. The problem with that, though, is if I'm not looking at my side of the sidewalk and looking within what's in me that needs to change, then what I'm doing is I'm being purposely given over to, say, the circumstances and situations that are self-destructive in my patterns, and I'm not doing anything about them. I'm doing, the best definition of addiction that I really personally love is it's suicide by the installment plan. It's like we're slowly poisoning ourselves and knowing so, but we're willing to look at other people and how they use poison and saying, you really need to do something about that. I think it might hurt you. But the invitation I really think here is that it says, we were diverted by the ugliness of some of its trees. We never gave the spiritual life, the side of life, a fair hearing. It's like, okay, that's what it does. It blinds us. It blinds us to looking at it. Are there potential other routes or other pathways that I can take that would be beneficial for where I'm at, instead of continuing the state of suffering that I find myself in? Because that's really what addiction does, is it makes us suffer. But it's like people can suffer for a very long time, but people will have to change once the consequences outweigh the benefits of what they're doing, and that's pretty much where it gets into like some really important conversation pieces with yourself, if you're willing to do it. Okay, and again, that means that's why we're given the invitation again and again: remain open-minded. Okay, because I don't want to look at somebody else and what they're doing. I need to look at me and what I'm doing, so that I'm more available to help people see, maybe from a different perspective, how my own experience might benefit them, and say, hey, have you looked at this? Can you see that that's benefiting you? Do you see that you're stuck in it? And then it just kind of gives it a wide open invitation to just say, you might want to look at that because I don't see that it's benefiting you. And then they get to deal with it whatever they may. So, that last paragraph is very instrumental at really helping us see that, looking at the dimensions of the human condition and defects of character, it's like it's really easy to see it in everybody else. But the invitation is to say, hey, let's take a look at it ourselves, so that we get out of that intolerant view of like what other people need to change, and understand that when we're pointing that out in others, those are things that we ourselves are burdened with that we haven't looked at. At least that's the way I look at it.
I love that. Thank you. I have one thought, but something that you were saying led me to this. If I'm skilled at recognizing the flaws in other people, and I'm not suggesting that's a skill or something we're proud of, but as a human being, if I can see the flaw in another human being, and I sit and I analyze that and I go, well, I don't want to be judgy. I don't want to be critical all of the time. But am I seeing these things because they're representative in my life too? Am I recognizing those patterns in another person because I see it within myself?
Right.
And none of us, to my knowledge, really take a full-length mirror around this earth with us, just watching, like, how am I coming across to the world? How did I say that? What was the look on my face when I said no or yes or whatever it was? Did I scare somebody? Did they think blah, 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 blah? Like, all of those things. In order to recognize, like to self-recognize, I think that's one reason that we can meditate, or one purpose for meditating, for going to counseling, or having support people in our world who we can bounce ideas off of and who will say to us, hey, I didn't really like how that came across. What did you mean by that?
Sure.
Or, wow, that was really cool. I was sitting with some of my closest friends the other day, and we were recognizing some good things in each other. And one of my friends, who I've said almost the verbatim things to with his dismissal of that praise, saying, nah, I'm not those things, turned to our other friend and said, you're compassionate, you're so loving, you put off this energy that you'll do anything for anybody, you're just a good person. And the one buddy, that he was praising is going, whatever, dismissive kind of a thing. Right. And I said, hold on a minute. Do you see what just happened? And I turned to the guy who said this, who was giving the praise, and I say, do you remember the times that I've said those same things about you? Mm-hmm. What is it too about our strengths that we don't recognize within ourselves? Sometimes, as we've been talking about this, it's more of the ego and resistance. Yeah. But there are good things about us that we dismiss for a variety of reasons. Sometimes it's shame and guilt that, well, I've done all these horrible things and I've hurt these people, and so I must not be a good person.
Well, there's that thought process, but I want to add a concept to it out of a book that I just read called Living Fearless. And the concept was that there's three things that will always make us not connect to our true identity, and that's fear, shame, and guilt. So fear, shame, and guilt have a quality to keep us from absorbing and being okay to embrace the truth of the good qualities that people see in us, because our egos are always constantly like badgering us and saying, you did that, and it's like, oh, I did that again. But it's like, that's one level of abuse. Let's go to a deep level of abuse. That abuse of like, I'll never be able to change. I just need to be okay with where I'm at. And you know what? Because life is so miserable right now, and because I can't stand myself, I just need to go drink, or I just need to go get shot up with whatever it is, right? It's like, that's the stuff that I would invite everybody to understand, that the big book is like right here specifically. It's inviting us to saying, hey, please take a look at this and understand that this is not the true picture, but what you're doing is you're being deceived by concepts to where you're comparing yourself to perfect standards maybe, and you're not allowing yourself the infallibility of being human, that then puts you into a position where you get those thoughts, and then you actually, those will drive you into the obsession of the mind state, where it's like, yeah, I'm only going to have one. But we know that in and of itself is an outright lie, because we've tested it thousands of different times. So I just invite the listener to please take the opportunity to take a good look at your own walk and journey, and understand that if you find yourself in that state where you're self-deprecating towards your own character, okay, that I find that not always beneficial. And I find that it's really important to be able to balance that with character that is positive, is good. And if you can't find anything that is good, go and ask people that have known you the large majority of your life, okay? And what you should find is you should find a balance between your own internal dialogue and how other people see you, so that you get a more realistic picture of what's going on, instead of the day-to-day internal dialogue that can be incredibly abusive.
Yeah, thank you. I agree with that. We are a reactive bunch. And there are things that we might know, but we hear something different superficially, and we jump ship. We abandon those core truths, even, to go with a trend or a random comment or something along those lines. And so I can't convey how important it is to slow down, to go inside, to internalize and go, let's say we have a question or a dilemma, like what feels right? Run that through my filters, run that through that core, like that source, like who am I? What are my values? What are my priorities? Those kinds of things. What's okay and what's not okay? All of that stuff before making decisions. A moment ago you mentioned, like, I also don't think we're rationally going, oh, I need to go drink. I need to go get high. I need to go escape. That's the deeper levels of us going, I can't handle all this noise. I can't handle all of this chaos. I just need to escape. I need to get away, but it's that deeper part of us, that pursuit of survival that's active there. I've not observed a whole lot of intellectual conversation going on inside of the head of kind of rationalizing. Yeah. It's very quick, like just hurry and I'm overwhelmed and I've got to escape.
Well, you mentioned something that I'd also like to talk about as well. I mean, that internal dialogue where all we want to do is we want relief. More often than not, we don't think of it in extremes. It's like, I just want to turn my mind off. Where's the light switch? It's like, there is none. Okay? But drugs and alcohol become so prevalent in helping us like have momentary relief, but there's skills that you can learn that can also do the exact same thing. The problem is it takes persistence, consistency, and using them whenever that stuff comes up. And as kind of a mental health provider, we're caught in that realm of like helping people understand that it's not a quick fix. Now, drinking and drugging is a quick fix because they're so effective at what they do. But the problem with that is that the consequences outweigh the benefits more often than not. It's just that the person that are really early into it, they can't see it. The person that's in the middle of it doesn't want to look at it. And the person that's really deeply engaged in it literally believes, I have to continue this. So it becomes kind of that meaningful piece of like helping people understand that there's more that they don't understand, and going on this journey to like evolve out of their lack of knowledge so that they have more awareness of things that are available to them that they could actually utilize that would benefit their life instead of continue to destroy it.
Yeah. So I'm hearing the statement, the message, sometimes my mind betrays itself.
Yeah. Sometimes
things I am convinced are real are not. There's also not often in this world the extremes. There's a lot of stuff that exists in the middle, and we need to recognize that gray area, that it has its part, it has its role. But to go back on this line, that very last one, we miss the reality and the beauty of the forest because we were diverted by the ugliness of some of its trees. That's one of my favorite lines in this book. So, there are hard things. There are bad things that happen in this world. Doesn't mean everything is doomed. It doesn't mean it's all over and that it's pointless. There is hope. We are works in progress, and I think we're going to make it collectively. But that requires a lot of effort. Yeah. That requires a lot of transparency. That requires love and compassion, because we can't do this alone. But over the course of time, we can make great strides. So, Joe, thank you so much for touching base this morning and connecting. And to our viewers and listeners, thank you so much for being with us. We hope this message is beneficial to you, and we welcome your input. And we'll see you next time on the next episode of the Do Your Dailies podcast. We'll be on page 50. Have a great rest of your day. We'll see you. Thanks for checking out this clip from the Do Your Dailies Big Book podcast. If you like what you hear and you want more, please like and subscribe and share this show with your friends, with your clients, with your sponsees. That's the best way to support us bringing you more recovery content. You can follow us on YouTube, Facebook, and X at Do Your Dailies. This podcast is sponsored by Hobble Creek Health and is edited and produced by Nielsen Digital.